Hello, everybody. And I want to just welcome all of my watchers and all of my listeners to the very first episode of Limelight Insights. And it is such a privilege to bring you this brand new podcast series from Power Up Coaching. And we are launching today, and the date is the 6th of October. And October is a very special month for me when it comes to launching. I launched my business, I launched my ministry, and I launched all of my entrepreneurial pursuits in the month of October. And it's been 10 years since I've been in business this year. So I have great pleasure in introducing to you our very special guest. And we have on the screen, we have Mary G. Evans joining us and gracing us with this very first episode, the genesis, if you like, of Limelight Insights. And the purpose of this particular podcast, as you'll learn over the coming months, weeks and months and years, is about us bringing together influential leaders from all across the globe to share their wisdom, to share their insights, and to share their learnings from their lives, from their business, and how they can actually pass those nuggets of wisdom on to you to enhance your life, your money, and also your business as well. So we're so honored to have Mary with us today. Mary, if you just want to say a quick hello and then I'll introduce you.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Good to be here.
Fantastic. So let me tell you a little bit about Mary and really how she became the number one diamond person to actually take us through the launching of Limelight Insights. I met Mary about 6 to 7 months ago. Absolutely beautiful heart, beautiful lady. And we were in a coaching program together and we just ended up getting on a buddy call, and it was amazing. The synergy and the likeness of our spirits just connected from day one. Would you agree with that, Mary?
Yes, we were like sisters from another mother
Oh, it was
and
it
a few different things, but yeah, we were really connected.
absolutely amazing. And I was just besotted with Mary. I was besotted with what she stood for. I was besotted with what she was going to bring to the world. And I just thought it really apt. What a better way to launch this, Limelight Insight series with a guru, with a woman of wisdom, with a woman that's wealthy in knowledge, in heart, and in spirit, but also has a lot to bring to the table. I'm so excited to hear her story, to hear where she's come from and what she's planning to do going forward. Okay. Because really and truly, what Mary has taught me is that it's really not over until the fat bird or the cookie stops crowing, right? So it's amazing. So what does Mary do? Mary is a life management consultant. Okay. She is an author of a book called My Estates Management Guide and My Life and Legacy Plan: How to Design Your Legacy, Will to Preserve the Values and the Life Experiences of Others. Phenomenal work she's doing. She's also the founder and life management consultant and Advanced Legal Training Institute. She's got 25 years experience, guys, as an executive trainer and a professional speaker. So we found some synergy there. Mary's also a certified conflict resolution and mediator specialist. She has management training specialist at the Fortune 500 companies. She's also the producer and the host of Voice of the Valley, which is a television show that she hosts in her own hometown. Mary has a BA at Willamette University, secondary teaching credential. So you can see, guys, I'm not bringing you somebody who is just off the cuff here. I'm bringing somebody here who has a wealth of experience, a wealth of stature, and quite a few letters behind her name. So Mary, thank you so much for gracing these Limelight Insights with your presence today. And I'd love for you to start off by telling us, a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and just I'll begin to ask you some questions from there, my darlings.
Perfect. Well, thank you for inviting me, and I'm excited to be here. I do have kind of a varied background. I graduated from college, started teaching junior high school. I was not a good enough disciplinarian for that
Mm-hmm.
job. So I went into Hewlett Packard and got involved in management training, which I love, which working with adults. And when you're at a company and you get invited to a training program, that's like a day out of school. So that's a big deal. Had a lot of fun. Then I left that company to start my own consulting practice. And I did what is called here in California, in the United States, professional organizing,
Ooh.
where you go into people's homes and offices and help them organize paper, etc. And at that time, I was young and had 3 little kids, and just thought you could manage a big, huge job and a
Mm-hmm.
family and a home and keep your relationship going. And I have since come to realize that that is almost impossible,
Sure.
or you need a huge amount of help. So when you
Mm.
see these women on TV and they just had a baby and then they show up again, I promise you, they have a lot of help. They probably
Yes.
have a professional organizer that
Sounds
lives
like
with
an
them or
interesting
something.
role. Mm.
Yeah. And through my work in consulting, and a lot of that was working in law firms
Mm-hmm.
and working with women attorneys. I remember once I worked with a gal, she wasn't even close to 5 feet tall.
Wow.
And she was the only woman in the firm. And many times the partners would come in and start giving her orders. And I said, well, number one, we got to get you bigger.
Sure,
So
sure.
as soon as they come to the door, I want you to, number one, stand up.
Mm.
Hopefully you've got a pair of heels underneath the desk you can slip on. Somehow make sure. And so I realized I was teaching a lot about boundaries and being
Right.
assertive and speaking up.
Mm.
And I just became really interested in how I can support women
Yes.
in being able to ask for more no matter where they
Mm.
are. And
Mm.
this concept of leadership, in that you may be running your own company now, especially if you're involved with working with Netty, but even
Right.
if you are at home and raising children,
Mm.
you are a leader. I
That's
guarantee
right. Absolutely.
everything you're doing every day, your children are watching you, learning from you, and
Mm. Mm.
someday it will come back to you. You'll realize how important it was that you led them and taught them. So I just I just feel like women sometimes don't honor themselves enough.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely. So, yes.
Nettie gets that. And
Yes.
so I have my consulting work, my organizing
Mm.
work, raising kids. Life was good. And at one point, this is route probably almost 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I had something happen that was very traumatic. I had 4 people in my family,
Right.
all of whom were like healthy, normal.
Mm.
I had just been at my mom's house for a birthday party, came home as best as I knew. My son
Sure.
was in bed with a bad cold. All these people died
Mm. Oh my word.
through, I can't even describe it. And if you've
Mm.
not experienced this personally, had someone passed away, maybe it was a grandparent or something, it's huge. You have
Absolutely.
all sorts of legal things to handle,
Yes.
financial things, plus you're planning a funeral, plus you're feeling grief.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in many cases, I got the phone call that every parent doesn't want to get, that
Sure.
in the middle of the night that my son had been in a car accident. Um, so what I did as a result of this and moving through all this change
Mm. Mm.
was I became very interested in estate planning and end of life planning. And you
Right.
say,
Right.
well, why would I do end of life planning? I'm fine. I'm
Right.
35 or whatever. Well, I'm here to tell you, you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We
Absolutely.
certainly are learning that with this virus that we're
Mm-hmm.
all
Of course. Of course.
with. So I wrote my first book because I adore pets, about
Okay.
estate planning. And you say,
Sure.
what's that about? Well, it's really no different than people estate planning.
Okay. Right,
What
right.
you do is you uh, determine, you choose to put some money aside, and you give that to a person who's your financial caretaker, and
Right.
you put another person who
Mm-hmm.
chooses that you choose to have as your uh, physical caretaker for your pet.
Right,
And
right.
so
Got
they're
it.
kind of a check on each
Mm,
other, right?
mm,
So let's just say in an estate plan for
mm-hmm.
your child, you would have the same thing. You would
Sure.
appoint someone to handle the money to take
Mm-hmm.
care of your
Mm-hmm.
child, and then someone else who the child may live with. So my goal in writing the pet protection legal care plan
Mm-hmm.
was that people would say, this isn't that complicated. I bet
Right.
I could do this for my family.
Okay.
So now I am dedicated to coaching women and
Mm,
men and families about end of life planning, about the legal,
right.
financial, last wishes, and probably
Yes.
the biggest part that we often don't think about is what I call legacy, which is
Right, right.
to be remembered. And,
Yes, yes.
what do you want to have said at your funeral?
Mm,
What do you want
mm.
to kind of be known for? And someone might say, oh, well, I don't know. It's not like I wrote a concerto.
Right.
But
Okay.
you did something. And
Yes, absolutely.
just to give you an idea, this is
Mm.
what I would like to be mine. It's really simple. Three things I came up.
Okay.
One is that I was a very good friend, that I
Right.
devoted and dedicated and a good friend.
Mm.
Second thing was that I was kind of like a human Google.
I love that.
I
Human Google.
If people can ask me questions about gardening,
Yes,
fencing,
yes.
Egypt, and I can probably answer a lot of questions.
Sure.
Maybe not a lot of depth. And
Mm.
the third thing is that I was the best mother that I could be.
Lovely. Love
And
that.
I don't
Yeah.
know, I'm a single mother, and I'm not really
Right.
sure how well I did there, but I am convinced of this, that
Mm-hmm.
I did the very best I could.
Awesome, awesome.
So
Let me ask you a question, Mary. For somebody who's out there listening to this right now, and they're hearing all this languaging about, end of life care, planning, and you mentioned earlier on that, obviously we know that death can happen to us at any particular time, and that it's not often maybe when you're in the, you're younger, say 50 and below, that you start thinking about having to plan for your end of life, right? We just don't,
right.
because we're living life, we're enjoying it, throwing away our years, thinking that we're never going to run out of it. But how important, would you say that it is for somebody who's listening to this right now to actually start planning from their 30s, 40s, or 50s? How important would you say that is for, someone who maybe doesn't have an idea of what their will is, their life plan, or their legacy plan? What sort of advice would you say on that right now for somebody who's younger, perhaps?
Well, I'm speaking here in the United States, but
Right.
when a child becomes, quote, an adult at age
Mm.
18, that is really when they need to begin to think about their end of life plan. You go,
Right.
what?
Interesting.
Well,
Yes.
your child goes off to college, and if first thing they need is what's called an advanced healthcare directive, which
Right.
means if they are in a car accident and you get called as a parent, that they have authorized you
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
speak with the doctors
Yes,
and
yes.
their private information. You say, well,
It's like
that's
power of attorney. We sort of call that over here.
yes,
Hmm.
yes. And you say, well, that's dumb. I'm the mother of court. No,
Right.
they're very strict about it
Absolutely.
here in the United States. So number one, you need to have a young adult sign that. Number
Right.
two is you need to have what's called a power of attorney for financial affairs.
Yes. Yes.
Because let's say they're going to be in a coma, sad,
Right.
but maybe their rent is due on Monday.
Mm,
Maybe
interesting.
they've got payments on their student loans.
Mm,
Who
mm.
knows? Plus, their passwords to their
Yes,
computer.
of course.
Most people have no clue what's
That's
going on.
right. I have a little book.
Yeah,
Mm,
and so there's those two things, which in my case, I encourage an adult child, if they don't already have their own family, to
Yeah.
put this information in a sealed envelope.
Okay.
Put it
Wise
on
idea.
your desk that you wouldn't be open. The other thing, there's those two requirements.
Right.
It's important. Another thing that children seem to be very committed to
Mm-hmm.
is they want to donate organs, and
Right. Okay. Of
they
course. Yes. Of
the
course.
back of their license and authorize
Mm,
that.
mm.
It's also a good idea to have a place where you have a list of the name of their physician, where their
Right.
medical
Yes.
records,
Yes.
depending if you have a child who's diabetic or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
epilepsy, who knows?
Yes. Yes.
You've got to have some maps and things set up
Mm-hmm.
so that
Mm-hmm.
they can be properly taken care of.
Right.
Now, let's say you're 55.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need then? Well, all those things I just described, you need all
Right.
of that, because if you fallen and broken your leg, it has to have surgery, you're in the hospital, then you have to go to a convalescence place.
Right. Of course.
You're
Of
going to
course.
want someone managing your bills.
Yes, you are.
uh, Depending on what else is going on, you're going to
Mm,
want somebody who's helping you with medical decisions.
that's right. And of
And
course,
there
if
may
your
be
mental
so
state is
many,
not about, if you don't have
so
any
much
mental sort
going
of
on.
capacity,
And then there's all the claims with
yes.
medical bills and on and on. And of course, let's just say you have a pet. If
Right,
you don't
right.
have
Okay.
something set up with that,
Yes.
well, who's going to take care of your pet while you're in
Mm,
and if your children are under 18? So all these, you
wow.
need to have this circle that steps
Sure.
in.
So, Mary, let me just say one thing to you. You've just shared the magnitude of the things that one person requires, okay? And as you're speaking, and I can hear the importance of all of those things, but for someone who's not really in that space thinking about that right now, it might seem really overwhelming, all right? So, how do you deal with clients who really don't want to consider what you're saying? They know it's important, they know that they need to make sure they do it, but they cannot handle the overwhelm because it's too emotional for them to start thinking about that at such an early stage. Tell me how you would work with somebody like that.
Well, you mentioned in the intro that I have a company called Advanced Legal Training Institute, which
Yes.
I am involved in setting up continuing legal education for estate planning attorneys.
Right.
And what I say to them is basically what they're talking about
Mm-hmm.
when they're meeting with you and writing up your estate plan, is they're talking about dying.
Right, right,
And it's
absolutely.
that's not what we're designed to do. We're
No,
designed to live.
that's right.
And so to talk about dying, what I do when I give presentations, I say, we're going to go visit a place, which
Okay.
is that place when you're at the end of life. How
Mm,
you want that to be. Do you want to be at home? Do you care if you're in the hospital?
right.
And then we're going to document it, and then we're going to come right back to here and put that in a drawer.
I'm with you. So you start with the
And,
future in
and so
mind and work your way
and
back.
right, it is something to think about,
Yes.
because um yeah, it's going to happen to all of us. I mean,
Mm,
I don't know how old Elizabeth Taylor was when she died, but
no, I'm
I
not sure.
live forever. I mean, I
Right, right,
can't imagine the world without her, but
right.
eventually everybody dies. So,
Yes, yes, it's
what a
inevitable.
gift it would be. And then
Mm,
there's much more. I said the third part is last wishes, but you may have some jewelry that is
right.
not necessarily valuable, but it was given to you by
As an
your
heirloom or something. Yes,
and
yes.
you need to write little notes. What I'm
Mm,
doing right now is I'm just laying, I don't have a lot of fancy things, but I'm laying them
okay.
out on my bed and taking
Yes,
photographs.
good idea. Yes.
And I'm taking a photograph of each room in the
Right,
home
right.
and writing an inventory.
Okay.
And um, having gone through the experience of having these people pass away, I mean,
Sure.
everything moves quickly. Real estate people arrive, I mean,
Yes,
all
yes,
most
of
of the
course.
people.
And I understand that because I've experienced, my partner passing away and trying to manage everything. The other question I wanted to ask you, because you've just mentioned you're doing that for yourself now, taking an inventory, taking photographs, listing things. What's the emotional feeling that you're having actually doing this for yourself rather than doing it for your clients? That's,
Well, I tell you, I'm really realizing about me, Mary, my attachment to
yes,
things,
right.
how I take things and I put meaning into them,
Mm-hmm.
which they may or may not really have.
Okay.
Here in California, we're having so many fires. So
Sure,
people are
sure.
literally losing their entire home.
Right,
And
right.
until you've had some people pass away
Mm,
and you understand how ephemeral life
of
is,
course.
and that this is all stuff. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact is, my brother, who I adored, who was tall and thin and
Mm,
successful and had all of his, he had a massive heart attack hiking.
right, right.
And I just had breakfast with him that morning. I, and with each death in my
Mm-hmm,
family,
mm-hmm.
I learned more,
Right.
in that all the money in the world won't bring him back.
Of course,
All
of
the
course.
stuff.
Yes,
And
and
then,
that's it, isn't it? It's the stuff, and I think you're quite right that people can get so hooked on stuff that they forget to get hooked on real life, real people, and really repair any harm and conflict and all of those different things, that really are important for someone who is sort of towards the end of life care or someone who's aging a little bit more and things like that. Or, even if you're a younger person and you're not even thinking about that right now, it's so important, as Mary's saying, to actually have a little bit of gratitude, if you like. That's what I'm kind
yeah,
of getting the thread through from what you're saying here. It's important to have gratitude so that you can plan these things with a clear heart, clear conscience, and of course, planning with what I always use the term grace and ease, because you
yeah,
don't want to be fretting doing this type of planning for your end of life care, right? Because it's overwhelming as it is. So if you've got somebody out here who's listening and they're into business, how would you say that this relates to a business person, Mary? Talk to us from that
well,
angle, please.
this is really important because I talk about how I help people write their legacy, what
Yes.
they want to be remembered for, etc. But your business has
Hmm.
what's called a succession plan.
Right.
And that
Yes,
is,
it does.
how, hopefully it consists of policies, systems,
Mm-hmm.
methods,
Mm-hmm.
how you work, a list of all the advisors,
Sure.
something. So let's just say you're in the hospital for
Yes.
whatever, a month or two, not necessarily dying.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
who is steps in
Absolutely. Yep.
as the CEO, and what is available to them, what has been documented in
Yes.
systems and policy book, where are the advisor lists,
Mm-hmm.
what would
Mm-hmm.
someone do, where are all the
Yes.
passwords.
Yes.
So everything that you
It's
have in your
synonymous, isn't it?
personal life,
Yeah.
you have in your business life. And you say, well, my business isn't that big, Mary, or
Yes.
make that much money. I rent a little apartment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even, I'm paying on my car. I don't need a
Right.
will. I don't need this stuff.
Mm.
No, estate planning is not for rich people.
That's right. That's a
It,
misconception, isn't it? That is actually a real big misconception, actually. You are right.
and,
Mm.
and like I said, with your 18-year-old needing the durable power of attorney and advance
Yes, yes.
directive. And the other thing that can happen with an 18-year-old is, potentially they may inherit money.
Right, of course, of
So
course. There's so much
uh,
involved.
there's so much involved, and
Mm.
that's why you need to have someone who's dedicated to you. And yeah, it's complicated. And people that are living together, that doesn't
Yes, yes.
marriage, but actually there are laws around that
Mm,
as
mm.
far as
So
property.
what you're doing, Mary, is you are opening up what I would like to term a can of worms.
Yeah.
Sometimes this is a can of worms that people really just want to perhaps keep the lid on, because it's one of those things that you definitely, like you said at the beginning, people do not really want to talk about death. We want to talk about life and living and fun and laughter. But, someone who has been a grief counselor, someone who works with trauma and end of life myself historically, I know how difficult that those conversations can be. But you're highlighting, and this is what it is, you're bringing the highlights, you're bringing the insights and limelighting for us today the importance of actually thinking about estate planning, thinking about planning for your end of life care and succession planning, more importantly, because we're talking to business entrepreneurs here, how important succession planning is, maybe at the start of your business, right? That
Oh,
should be something
absolutely.
that should happen
Your
a
bank
parallel,
account,
right?
all that. I would hope that anything you're doing,
Mm,
your daily activities, a list of clients, a list of
absolutely.
vendors, a list of bank accounts, a list of, your tax returns, your tax,
Yes,
all this kind of stuff somehow is, I mean, in big law firms, they have an office manager
that's
who
right. That's right.
basically is handling all that data.
Yes.
And you need to have systems for backup when
Mm-hmm.
things fall apart. And this is kind of like a giant backup. What I call all of this is, everybody knows about being a grown up.
Right, right.
Not that I want to be a grown up every day. So
Well, who
much
does? We want to play child
responsibility.
sometimes. It's good to let the hair down, Mary, right?
Yes.
Have
And
some
the
fun.
fact is, and we all know there's like scut to everyday
Mm,
life. There's laundry, there's dishes,
absolutely.
there's,
Stuff, stuff, stuff,
work,
stuff.
getting the car battery fixed, whatever. Well, estate planning and getting affairs in order and
Right.
making sure that your stuff is handled, even if you don't have a lot of stuff.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it's even more so if
Mm,
you've got a lot of things, but um, that's part of being a grown up. And
absolutely
once
agree.
again, you're
Yes,
modeling that for
yes.
your children.
Mm-hmm. I
And
totally agree. So it's not one of those things that you can perhaps just leave under the what I would call the lumpy carpet syndrome, because we tend to avoid the difficult things in life because they're just too hard for us to either face or to go through. And you're quite right. It's these are the most important things actually that oftentimes people will leave till last, or they don't do at all. And then it's a nightmare, isn't it, at the end for the person who's got to then pick up the
oh,
pieces to support them to get things in order, as well as perhaps dealing with the trauma and the grief of their experience, because obviously not everybody goes in a most amicable way. Do you see what I'm saying? So again, you've also got to think about the life cycle of grief and people coping and recovering from all of those things as well. So Mary, just to sort of wrap this up, my lovely, what's kind of one piece of wisdom that you would like to leave for our audience today in relation to legacy, life planning, and thinking about all of those things: health, estates, children, finances, homes? What sort of one nugget of wisdom and insight that you can leave for our audience today?
well, I'm with you. Make it simple and break it down into chunks. So
Right.
maybe go to an office supply store and get yourself a box. And
Mm,
with that box, start to collect your tax returns, some of your bills, a list
yes,
of your,
yes.
just start slowly. Do it for an
Right.
hour and then be done with it.
Lovely.
Then go back, and add to it and
Mm.
know that, yeah, this isn't the most fun thing,
I was going to
but
say that, yes, because it isn't the most fun thing at all, is it really?
you're,
Mm.
you're creating a gift.
Yes,
And one of the things that I talk about, the other thing that can help is to do it with a friend and
absolutely,
check in on
absolutely.
the phone with each other and
Right.
encourage each other. Because you're right, you're talking, it's kind of a bummer
It
It's
is, it
like,
is.
yeah, you're talking about, and then in my case, I keep running into old photos and I
Right.
get
And it brings up
sad.
emotions and all sorts of things as well. So
Well,
it's double-sided sword here, isn't there, really, to be
it's
honest?
big. It's very
Yeah.
grown up.
Yes.
you know,
So how do you find, I have another question that I want to ask you. Sorry to interrupt you. How do you find that the coaching element comes into the work that you do? How would you find that you having
well,
to,
and I was going to say this a minute ago. How does one lose weight?
right.
Everybody on earth knows this. You eat
Mm,
less and exercise more. It's super simple. It's
wow.
not a big deal.
Mm,
And you weigh yourself and measure
sure.
yourself. Okay. So with any kind of class, and you learn,
Right.
someone presents an art project, and, oh, I'd love to do that. Well, you've got to start. You've got to be clear about your goal. You've
Right.
got to be clear about how the feedback is, like
Mm-hmm.
when you'd like to finish and how are you in the process. But to me, the biggest part is the support that
Yes,
you,
yes.
and finally, what's your reward? And your
Right.
reward might be saying to your children, hey, I just want you to know I just worked my butt off getting organized. And I had a friend the other day tell
Uh-huh.
me that his 92-year-old grandma called
Wow.
him from New York City
Okay.
and said, Johnny, it's grandma. And he goes, oh, hi, grandma. She goes, I want you to know that I
Mhm.
am currently death ready. And he goes,
Wow.
I guess
Interesting.
it's a Swedish term,
Right,
but
right.
it has to do with sorting things and
Yes.
deciding who gets what. It just kind of,
Yeah.
and she's like, you don't have to worry about me. I got everything all
Right.
laid out.
My aunt is a bit like that. She's 84 and she's going through the same process right now. She's told us what she wants to wear, what she doesn't want people to wear, and all of those different things already. Very happy about that particular episode in her life that's due to come. So, it's about outlook and perspective, right? Would you agree?
Absolutely. And
Mm.
it gives you peace of mind. And
Mm-hmm.
I know
Keyword.
Nettie and I are in a training program. The woman who's teaching it raises very fancy horses. And
Yes.
she was saying that she has an estate plan for each horse
That's
because,
right. Yes.
not unlike a pet protection plan,
Mm.
horses, live longer and have very complex health
Sure.
challenges. She's got it all written up.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I thought, wow. And a lot of it's a personality.
Mm, mm.
A lot of people are really resistant. So where does coaching come in?
Yes, please.
Coaching comes in like the person who needs to lose 15 pounds because the
Right.
doctor says you're pre-diabetic.
Yes.
So what does a coach do? A coach says, well, how are you doing? Well, I'm doing horrible.
Mm.
Okay. What could you do? One little, how coaching works.
I do.
One tiny thing tomorrow. Could you have
Yes.
extra glasses of water?
Right, right.
Could you walk one more time around the block?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't make any difference. I feel like a total failure. Well, let's change our self-talk.
Exactly.
And this is the same thing. I
Right.
mean, maybe, and I have talked with people about death and what that
Yes.
means and the fears and who they have lost in their life. And
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't believe the absolute terror that people
Right.
have about perhaps losing a child and
Of
all.
course, of course. It's probably the worst nightmare for any parent, isn't it? You never
Yeah.
expect that to happen.
And, and
Yes,
the fact is, we live
of
and
course.
we choose how we want to
Yeah.
live and
Yeah.
what lessons we want to share. So part of
Right.
my journey now as a coach is to take these lessons I've learned
Mm,
and share them with people that are
thank you.
challenged. Yeah.
It's been beautiful, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your insights, and really just bringing to life and to the limelight, a subject that actually is almost taboo. We don't talk about life death planning, and I know it's an unusual subject to bring to the forefront, but I thought it was a very important subject product that we bring to the forefront. I really want to thank you for being our very, very first guest on our Limelight Insights program. And of course, Mary, I know there's so much more that to the bow, to your strings, to your bow, and would love to hear from you again at some point. But if there's any last words, of course, that you would like to leave for our audience, if you just give us a quick takeaway, what is that?
Well, I just want you to know that this is a difficult topic, and for you to even consider taking time to think about it and putting your thoughts together. In America, only 3 out of 10 people have an estate plan.
Interesting.
We're so
Wow.
afraid of thinking about that.
Mm,
And yet, if you go out to dinner with your husband or partner, someone can run a stoplight. You could end up
right.
with children that are orphans.
Of
So
course.
you don't want to be naive. You want to be a grown up and handle
Mm.
stuff.
I like that. I love it. So don't be naive, be a grown up and handle stuff. Mary, thank you so much for your time on
So
this episode 001 of the Limelight Insights. And I want to thank everybody that's tuning in to listen to this, whether you're hearing it live or whether you are going to be listening to this on the replay. We thank you so much, and really do look out for so much more that's going to come from all of the wonderful people that we will have on this show that's going to bring you insights for life, for money, and for business. Thank you so much and take care. Bye-bye.
thank you.